Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Large Format Photography Podcast. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Andrew Bartram and Andre Domingues. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Simon.
Hello, Andre.
Hello, gentlemen.
It's great to have you here, Andre.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, now, before we get going, I just want to say thank you to Alex Burke, who was our guest with us, just over 2 weeks ago, because we're a little bit later than, with this show. But thank you for being with us, Alex. It was great having you on the show, and certainly that chat about colour resonated with a lot of people. So thank you for taking the time out and for being with us for that. Right then, so on to this week. Let's head over to the Fens and see what Andrew's been up to.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about that Alex Burke show we did, and colour scanning. As I mentioned, I need some help with that. So maybe we should do one of these shows about colour scanning at some point, because black and white's lovely, and I can make nice prints, but colour scanning I'd like to be able to do. I'd like to be able to do it on my. I have to do it on my V500 because that's the only scanner I've got, and I'm not buying anything more expensive. So, what do you think, Simon? A show on scanning, or we must be able to find an expert somewhere.
Well, you can always just listen to the Classic Lenses podcast.
Okay.
And particularly,
maybe I need to do that.
Yeah,
which episode?
It wasn't that long ago, because we had Hamish on talking about his imminently to be released Pixelator. That was imminently to be released some time ago, and then it wasn't. Yeah. But we thought, this is it now. It's going to happen. And he was also on with Nate Johnson, who is the man behind Negative Lab Pro. Which is a plugin for Lightroom, which automatically converts your negatives into positives, and does an absolutely incredible job of it. And he goes into quite some length about how that plugin works, and also just the intricacies of scanning. And one of the things about that program that he's created is that you can use it in conjunction with scanners. If the scanner can take a TIFF, if it can scan to a TIFF file, then it could then be run through the Negative Lab Pro software. Which, from my experience, is absolutely excellent. Some people prefer the scanning software that comes with it. Some people like Silverfast and so on and so on. But it's great to have choices. And there's also a new one on the market. And I say it's on the market because it's free, which I've seen some really good results, which I can't quite remember what that one's called.
Oh, you mentioned it last time. It's called
Film Lab?
No.
Oh,
you mentioned it in the last show.
To grain?
That's
Pixel to grain.
Yeah, that's it. So so that's another way. But I think that uses Photoshop, whereas the other one works with Lightroom.
Well, my IT ineptness, and also the laptop belongs to the firm, so that goes back when I leave at the end of the year. So I'll get my own laptop or desktop or something. But it still doesn't solve the problem of actually digitizing. So I know I can go and get one of Hamish's Pixel Sooners or Pixelators or whatever the joke is.
Yeah, Pixie Latte.
Pixel Sooner is the next version, I think, isn't it? So I could go and get one of those, but then, can I get a decent scan of a 4.5 negative using a phone? I mean, I don't have a digital camera, and anyone who knows me knows that I'm not going to go and buy a digital bloody camera, excuse my French.
Yeah, well, you do. If you're going to do camera scanning, there's debate over actually what it's actually called, but camera scanning is probably about the easiest one to describe it. But but you don't have to go nuts. You haven't got to get anything particularly special. I mean, it all depends on what you're actually planning to do with the scanned images. And if all you're going to do is,
true.
If you're just putting them onto Facebook, Instagram, and things like that, you absolutely don't need anything special. But if you decide that you want to start printing as high a resolution as you possibly can digitally, these color shots in particular, then you might want to actually, use something that's a high res.
I just got a pop-up, Simon, that it said that you muted Andrew. Now, I know that there's a friendly rivalry between co-hosts, but...
That was because I pressed the wrong button. And
Yeah. Well, I will say though. So the CineStill crew have become quite close with the folks over at Negative Supply, and they told us that for the first 6 to 9 months of them kind of operating, all of the images that they were putting out on social media were done with a Canon Rebel T2i little APS-C DSLR and Canon's cheapest macro lens on the market. So you're gonna get better results if you're using a better camera, a better macro lens. But also in my experience here, using an old 5D Mark II and an adapted, Nikon 60 millimeter macro D series lens, it really does not take a lot gear wise to get a good picture. And I've tested the pixelator, I've tested the Negative Supply 4x5 holder, so I think you've got plenty of options, Andrew.
Yeah. So no, you're still muted, Andrew. Unfortunately,
I know. Why do you keep muting me? What's wrong with you?
I'm sorry about that. Go on.
Well, I think so. I think what I'm going to do is forget large format 4x5, and I'm going to concentrate. I've got my 6x17 back.
Right, I'm going to mute you again then now.
Oh, for goodness sake, why?
You're giving up on large format, so I'm just going to...
No. Listen. So, and also I'll just use my Fuji 6x9 camera, and there's quite a bit of real estate on those negatives. And, I can then still use my V500, and I can just concentrate on darkroom work for the large format stuff. Because I don't want to make my life overly complicated, you see. This is the problem.
So, Simon, if you want to dump Andrew and take me on as a co-host of the Large Format Photography podcast...
Listen, I'm keeping my powder dry at the moment, but I've got a few things to say about to you, Mr. Domingues.
Oh, I bet.
Have you asked me what I've been up to yet, Simon?
I thought that was it.
Probably, yeah. No, I've been messing around in the darkroom and thinking philosophically about life, as one or two of you know who I interacted with, but that's it, really. And I've been in the darkroom, which is nice. And I've not been making too many images, which is also nice for me. Yeah. Cool. So, Nick, I've just given the game away, haven't I?
No, not quite. Not quite. We can roll this one through. So keep going.
Yeah. So I'm aware, as someone has just pointed out, that you can stitch together the 4x5, but someone will have to show me how to do that. You can show me how to do that, Simon, can't you? Do you stitch together?
I do, but I do it digitally with camera scans, but one of that which is also but that's also one of the things I've been saying, is that if you're only going to put these things onto something like Facebook or something like that, there's no point in taking multiple photographs and making huge images if you're then going to compress the hell out of them just to put them onto a screen or a phone. So which makes me
think I'm just going to stick with my 6x9 and 6x17 for color.
Yeah.
So Andrew, you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I do.
I mean, what do you have? Any 35mm cameras?
Yeah, a Nikon F2 and a Nikon FE, an Olympus 35 RC.
Perfect. Okay, Nikon. Buy a cheap APS-C Nikon DSLR. They're on the cheapest macro lens you can find, the 55mm micro, and use the pixelator.
I don't want to buy a digital camera. I'm sorry. I just don't. I just don't. It's never grabbed my imagination in any way whatsoever. I understand what you're saying. You don't have
to use it for anything but scanning.
No, I know what you're saying, but you're just adding another layer of complication to my life, and I don't need it. Okay, I've got enough complicated things going on. What did I say, Nikon or Nikon? And what's correct? Is it Nike or
I think it is Nikon.
What
did I say? I don't know what I said.
I think that this goes back a long way, obviously, and I think it's probably closer to being Nikon. So it's somewhere in between. It's none of the ways that we usually say it. So say however you like.
I'll use my Toyo camera for making 4x5 and 6x17 images, but just color in the 6x17 probably. Yeah. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds good. So shall I do my bit?
If you like.
Yes, why not? Because I've had a pretty exciting week this week, or at least a couple of days ago. Because up until then, absolutely nothing had happened large formatty. But on Friday. Yeah, Friday. Dave Shrimpton dropped by to say hello. and he was on his way up north to meet with someone, and he dropped by. And the main reason for him dropping by was because we were both online at the same time, watching a physical auction. And we were chatting to each other about certain lots, mainly the large format lots that were on at this auction. And there was a 10 by 8, yeah, a 10 by 8 camera that was on there. And that sound effect was the sound of a 10 by 8 camera, just like the one that Dave Shrimpton bought landed on the table. So anyway, Dave dropped by, and of course he brought some stuff with him. So if Dave was going to bring some stuff with him, which I knew he was going to do that, I thought I'm going to dig out some of my gear as well, and just set it all out in our lounge, waited for him, and then he came in and delivered all his heavy lenses that he's got. Every lens he's got was heavier than mine, which was massively disappointing, but no, it was a case of he was going to be dropping by for an hour and a cup of tea, and then 4 hours later, and my wife making him sandwiches later. he was on his way. But I think you had a pretty good time, didn't you, Dave?
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant to finally meet you, and and who would have thought it? It ended up with chaos, didn't it? With large format everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I entered I've travelled up north to do cyanotype and a Polaroid emulsion lifting course, and I ended up leaving your house with 2 new cameras, one 8-10, and then your amazing 5x7. Some wonderful lenses that you've been very kind to lend me, and even a lens board that you printed for me, and a lens. So, top man, it was a good weekend, and I've ended up with some nice 10-8 holders as well. So
they were fantastic, weren't they, as well? Those holders.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Stunning. And the beauty of them, guys, is that we all know what 10-8 holders are like. There's 3 of these came with the camera, and they do fit the camera. But 2 of them, I haven't opened them, but they're heavy, so they've got glass in them. So who knows? There could be an image there. So I've not opened them. Chances are there's nothing, but you never know. There could be an image from 100 years ago. So I shall try and develop them. I probably need your help with that, Andrew, and what the hell to use. But a lot of fun. Very good.
And when you said you took a 7x5, it was a half plate camera, and that was a camera that quite some time ago I lent to Mr. Andrew Bartram. And because I was thinking, well, Andrew knows about this large format photography, and he can go out there and he can use it with his Thornton Pickard shutter and so on. And how did you get on with that, Andrew?
I gave it back to you. I was too frightened to use it, I have to admit.
Yeah, but at least you did.
I did cut some film down, some X-ray film for you.
You did,
didn't I?
And Andrew's got, and Dave's got it as well.
And I've given you instructions on what to do with it.
You have. There you go.
Post-it note.
I didn't turn that packet over,
and,
with the instructions.
Oh shit! Okay, sorry about that.
So I reckon, Dave, probably about 8 minutes with HC110 dilution B. Your old plates, that came to me just now as I was watching you.
B, but not okay.
I don't know. I've no idea. I've not used it. The only thing I've developed the Jason Lane plates in is stock ID11 for 9 minutes, maybe.
I'll just do one in anything.
That's about right for the plates.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the old plates, Dave. I think HC110 dilution B. Yeah. At a lower temperature.
Okay.
It'd be nice to develop them by inspection, but you don't know if they're panchromatic. So as a starting point, maybe like 8 minutes.
Yeah, I mean the chances are, they're fogged or they've been exposed, but.
Oh yeah, sure.
You know how exciting it is when you hold something and you know there's something in there.
Yes.
It's like, oh my God, how cool is this? So I did buy a stereo Rolleiflex recently, and the guys, it was all lovely, and the guy said, I opened them all up and took all the glass out. I said, no, but never mind.
It's like the guys on eBay who sell photographic paper and kindly take it out of the box to show you what's in there. But
yes, Simon, it was an absolute treat and a pleasure to meet you. And 4 hours, I'm not surprised. There you go.
Yeah, it disappeared. So thanks for dropping by, Dave. It was absolutely fantastic. And with that was pretty much what's been happening with me. So Andre, what have you been up to lately?
Oh boy, it's actually been quite a lot. One of the, I think, ironic things about working at CineStill is that for the vast majority of time, being so, surrounded by film and film photography things, I end up not doing a whole lot in my personal time. But just in the past week and a half, I received my pixelator from Hamish Gill and have been testing that. We received our negative supply 120 carrier, and I've been testing that out. I went over to meet up with John Money, who's here on the call, and picked up his huge, monstrous Omega 4x5 enlarger with the 3-lens turret. Had my boss, Brandon Wright, come over and help me install it. Now I'm building this tool storage card so that I can put the enlarger on top of that and kind of wheel it into the darkroom. So there's a lot going on right now. Whereas there usually isn't, as most people will know from my pretty empty, what I've done since the last episode segments of the Negative Positives podcast.
You've moved house recently, haven't you, Andre? You showed some pictures of a palatial residence.
No, still in my small little 1-bedroom apartment here.
Are you sure you haven't moved house?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
got some new toys to play with, but no new digs.
Okay. You sure? Sure you haven't moved house? Okay.
Positive.
Must have been somebody else. So where's your darkroom then? What have you?
It's still in the bathroom. Yeah. I pretty much, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 weeks after I moved in a year and a half ago. I went ahead and covered up the one window that's in the bathroom with some light-proofing material, which is actually some extra bits of light-proofing material that the CineStill darkroom is made of. One entire wall of the CineStill darkroom is just this light-proof sheeting. So I got that in, was using my small little 35 millimeter enlarger less than a month after I moved here. But then things got busy. I sort of set things aside. I ended up picking up a medium format enlarger maybe 8 or 9 months ago that didn't have a baseboard on it, and I've just been dragging my feet on that. So when John hit me up with this Omega enlarger that had a baseboard and had that 3-lens turret, it was like, well, this could replace everything that I have. So went over, met up with him after work, had a lovely conversation, and we'll get him on once we open the floor up to everybody. But yeah, now it's built. It's all ready to go. The only problem is that I can't lift the damn thing or push it into the bathroom. What I usually do is, so I'll be sitting on the toilet and I'll have a coffee table with like a bath towel over it that I set the enlarger on top of. And that works fine for the small little 35 millimeter one. It will work fine for the medium format one. But this one is just way too much of a beast. So putting it on this storage cart that can apparently take up to like 500 pounds of weight should make it nice and neat and organized with all my paper and dodging and burning tools and things in the drawers. And then there's a bottom shelf that I can put the Gray Lab timer, trays, things like that, and then just wheel it into the bathroom. And I've already tested just with the wheels to make sure that I can clear all the corners. I'm not going to bang it into anything.
So I had to say something. Well, I didn't actually say it. I thought it when you said you sit on the toilet to make your enlargements. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to seal the I've got to seal the door up because there's
the smells.
There's plenty of space in between the door and the door frame. So I essentially, this whole thing that everybody says about ventilation is like, well, I don't know how exactly that's going to work for me because I've got to, shove some towels underneath the bottom of the door, but then gaffer tape the tops and the sides. So it's making sure that I've got water, I've got snacks, and I've got a toilet in order to deal with the aftermath of those first two while I'm in there for several hours is very important.
You can make a light type baffle by drilling holes in your door, but if it's a rented place, the landlord
I
might
can't
not
do any of that stuff. I've already asked.
Yeah. Maybe you could put some kind of air pipe down the toilet and eventually you'd reach... I saw this in a film somewhere. I think it was
It's pretty stinky snorkel right there.
Kingsman, that's right. They flooded the room and they survived by putting shower heads down the toilet so they could breathe. So I think if you did that, you'd be fine. And then rig it to a mouthpiece so you had it like that.
Yeah,
and then you had the lead going down the toilet and you'd get some air.
It's going to be a pretty unsanitary snorkel right there.
Let's just bring this back to photography again, or away from the toilets. And you've already touched upon it with CineStill going to do 4x5. Has that been announced yet? Because I've not heard this before. Is this news? Is this breaking news that we're doing at the moment?
I mean, I've mentioned it. I've one could say leaked or just kind of casually chatted about it. We just finished a production run of about 12 master rolls, which is a pretty unique opportunity for us, given that a bunch of the studios and major feature films being shot on film. Obviously, production halted during COVID, so Eastman Kodak was left with quite a bit of film for this second and third quarter of the year. So we went ahead and bought all of that up. Matt and the twins went over to Rochester and spent about 2.5, almost 3 weeks there, running as much film as they could. So we've got a lot of it, and even though a lot of that's already been pre-sold and is going to be helping out with the back orders, there is the possibility that maybe half or maybe a full master roll can be dedicated to cutting down to large format, which we've done before. We did a very limited 4x5 run as Indiegogo rewards when they were obviously raising money for building the larger version of the machine that sits in Rochester that strips the remjet layer from the master rolls rather than just the 1,000-foot 35 millimeter pancakes. And so it's been out there in the past, and in subsequent master roll production runs, they've kind of hand cut some sheets of 4x5 and 5x7 just for our own internal use. But this is the first time that we've had enough material to potentially make a small run, and we're even in talks right now to do something like a Ilford ULF order or Keith Can-Am's custom orders to sort of use that to gauge the demand on how much 4x5 would people want, how much 5x7, how much 8x10.
Yeah. So
there's some exciting stuff happening. We've also gotten pricing and availability on XX in master rolls, so there's the possibility of having that emulsion in new formats as well, which also we're the only ones to be able to do that.
Well, just
exciting stuff coming.
I was going to say, just for the sake of our listeners that are not aware of the films that we're talking about and what makes CineStill different from other films, is there a brief rundown of the films that you do and why it's so interesting?
Sure. CineStill provides 3 different emulsions. Or film stocks, I guess is more accurate of a term. There's XX, we brand it as BWXX, which is Eastman Kodak 5222 XX black and white motion picture film. No remjet on it, but a really beautiful, contrasty, very cinematic looking black and white film, medium speed. Then there is 50D or 50 daylight, which is an extremely fine-grained daylight balance film. That coming from the Vision 3 50D stock does have to have the remjet layer removed from it in order to make it processable in C41, so you can do it yourself in C41 chemistry or send it to any lab that does C41 across the country. You don't have to deal with removing the remjet layer yourself or purchasing an ECN2 kit. And then 800T is the other much more popular one. It sells at a rate of about 3 or 4 times the rate of 50D, and that is our high speed color film that comes from Vision 3 500T, and it's fantastic for mixed artificial lighting. You can shoot it from anything from daylight to fluorescent, LED, tungsten lights, and it renders some really, really nice, natural-looking colors with a moderate amount of grain.
And I've shot that in a pinhole camera as well, the 800T.
Yeah. three really beautiful stocks that we're excited to be able to offer in different formats in the not too distant future.
I think the thought of that of 800T is pretty spectacular on 4x5 because I mean it's good on the smaller formats, and you're going to get the grain as you might expect. I've got a dog that's kicking off. Sorry about that. But on large format that could be absolutely incredible. I saw
somebody put in the chat here that the high speed color in 4x5 would be really great for the handheld 4x5 crowd.
Yeah, for your Ouija night shots of dead bodies and things.
Sandy Firemeister actually shot some back.
Yeah, so AJ, I don't know if people were able to hear, his audio levels were pretty low, but he just said that Sandy Firemeister has shot some 4x5. He received some from the Indiegogo campaign, and we've also kind of trickled out a few boxes to him over the years. And yeah, the work that he's done with it in 4x5 is just absolutely beautiful. So when we do end up launching it, we'll very likely be using a lot of his image as promo.
Right. Well, I think this is probably a good time to do a bit of an introduction to our guest, and we'll get on with the main part of the show. So, as you've heard, we have Andre Domingues on the show, and he is a co-host of the Negative Positives podcast. And as you've already heard, he works for CineStill, and he likes watches, and he goes to sleep on air, and interestingly, the reason why Andre is with us today is because he dropped us a line saying, "Guys, I've bought some cameras. Can I come on the show?" And I thought, yeah, we can do that. And the thing is, I was chatting to Mike Gutterman about this, and he says he's having you on. He's got you because how do you mean? All he's doing is buying gear to whichever it is that whichever show that there is that it's specialist. So he's about to get himself a pinhole camera pretty soon, and then appeal to Andrew to go onto the lensless.
No! I'm
there, done that.
Yeah, give me a chance to get. I'm holding myself in suspenders. So to speak.
Well, the thing is, he first got in touch with me a while back because he bought this Minolta Maxim lens. And said, "Simon, I've got this old Minolta lens. Can I come on the Classic Lenses podcast?" And I had to let him down. That's an autofocus lens. And so he went away, thought about it, and obviously then came away and bought a couple of large format cameras. So
I don't think that was me, Simon. I've never requested to be on Classic Lenses, nor have I ever bought a Minolta Maxim lens.
Well, that's not what Mike Gutterman's telling me anyway. So I believe Mike is a good guy.
Simon.
Yes.
So the thing is, in the early days of the Lensless podcast, so a very keen new pinhole user called Andre Domingues got in touch with Corey Cannon, and they met up, and he was dead keen. Pinhole was going to be the next big thing. Forget every other format. It was all pinhole. He had projects set up for college to do like photojournalistic using pinhole. The next thing we know, sold it all. He'd been on the show, had his 5 minutes of fame, and then he started buying watches. So he's got this reputation of just getting into things for 5 minutes, and suddenly he's got large format cameras and enlargers. How long is it going to last? That's what we want to know, Andre.
Andrew, everybody makes mistakes in life, and the important thing is to provide people with forgiveness and second chances. And if I will have you know that I've actually been hitting up Neil Piper, asking him, well, I've got this 4x5 camera now. Like, Andrew's gonna have my head, but I'd like to see if I can shoot 4x5 pinhole with it rather than going out and buying, another 4x5 pinhole camera, especially since you can obviously change the focal length. And he was like, "Yeah, there's some calculators to go out there. Yeah, don't tell Andrew."
I shoot pinhole occasionally with mine. I've got when I got my Intrepid Mark I camera from the Kickstarter, it came with a pinhole.
Right.
So when I then sold that camera, I kept the pinhole board, which I sometimes use on the large format.
And also, in my defense, I think I don't know if I had actually talked to you about it when you confronted me about selling the whole. I had a 0-image 6x9 pinhole camera that I had purchased like a bunch of accessories for: the cable release adapter, the filter adapter. It had the little card that you held up to the back so that you could actually see, kind of like a sports finder, an approximation of the framing, which I thought was brilliant because I could never look at the lines going either way and really tell what the hell I was going to be getting. And I loved it. But over time, the much kind of slower, more like methodical way of shooting it started to grind my gears a little bit. But you know what, Andrew? I was a young buck. I have matured in age and experience. I'm a lot more patient than I was in the past. There may yet be a time and place in which I can get fully back into pinhole. I think that definitely it is on the horizon, but there's two different kind of paradigms that I'll either go down. Either, cheap and cheerful, reality so subtle that I can just throw in my bag, set up on a little mini tripod, pinhole assist app, and, Bob's your uncle, or going full out with something that resembles the workflow of large format on a bigger tripod, being able to visualize my scene, doing side-by-side comparisons, metering off of different things. So, time will tell, but I'm hoping to redeem my reputation as a flipper and as a very temporary, entrant into many different formats and styles of photography.
Right. Well, on that note, this show's a little bit different, as some people have probably confused if you're listening to this as a podcast. And that's, you already heard Jason Lane and Dave Shrimpton. And there are more people on this podcast because we're actually recording this, I was going to say, in front of a live studio audience, but that's not entirely correct. But when we realised that we were having a podcast professional on the show, we thought this is a good opportunity to do something very, very different. And although it's quite similar to what we did for the large format photography podcast gathering in the Forest 2020 that was virtual. And so I put an invitation out on Facebook I think it was on Friday, and asking anybody that wants to come along, drop me an email and we'll give you an invite. And I deliberately kept that low key because I didn't want to have too many people on the show, because it can be, well, I've already got a rowdy lot in front of me at this moment, so I don't think I can actually have any more of them. I probably couldn't cope with it. So we have a select group of people with us, and the idea is that Andre is new to large format. Is certainly not new to photography, but there are lots of things that he's not entirely certain about, or he'd like some clarification on, and it seems like this will be a good opportunity for questions that are, well, if you've been doing it for a reasonable length of time, you know the answers already, but when you're actually starting off, some things that seem to be quite basic to us now are absolutely not, and they can be quite bewildering. So this is an opportunity for Andre to ask questions to Andrew and I, but also to a wider group of people. And there is a huge amount of knowledge around this table at this moment. So let's just say we're all around a table. So I'm just going to introduce all of the people that are actually in this room. Then we'll get onto some questions. And I don't know if hopefully you've got some questions to ask us, Andre, and really the questions are going to be going out to the whole group of people. They're not specifically to Andrew and I, unless there's a specific person that Andre wants to ask the question. Then if that's the case, Andre, please name the person. So what I'll do, I'll introduce everybody, and then we'll get going again. So I have a list of people in front of me, and I think they're alphabetical as well. Yes, they are. So we have AJ White. Hello, AJ.
Hello, can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, your audio is much better. That's good news.
Great.
Then we have Ethan Moses of Camerodactyl Cameras. Hello, Ethan.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I've got to say, Ethan, we've been watching you build a camera while we've been on air, and there's something special about this camera, isn't there, Ethan?
Yeah, this is Andre's camera. He requested all black, so I gave him this black focusing helix because that's the hardest part to change. And then I found a yellow spare grip and this baby blue black baby blue focusing screen and some red clips for him. And if he really hates it, for $1 million, I will sell him the black parts for it.
I mean, Ethan's sending this to me out of the goodness of his heart, so I have no ground to stand on with my preference for black.
I think by the goodness of my heart, I think you mean shameless self-promotion.
Yeah, same difference.
As Henry Ford said, any color as long as it's not black.
Well, just as a point about this camera that's being built, I've seen Ethan hit it with, well, I'm not sure if it was a hammer or not, but certainly he had it to one side and he was giving it a good smacking with something. And then another point, I saw flames coming out of it as well. Oh, it was a knife. He was stabbing it. Okay.
It's my rubber hammer knife. I've only nicked my finger through the entire skin once this week, but that was from the chisel.
Right. So thank you, Ethan. Who else have we got on here? Right. You've already heard him, Dave Shrimpton. Hello, Dave.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be on again. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, it's great to have you back, and of course, just like Ethan, a former guest on the show as well. So thanks for being with us again.
Thank you.
And then we've got another former guest in the name of Greg, in the shape of Greg Obst. Hello, Greg.
Hey guys, good to be back again.
It's fantastic to have you on again, Greg. It was great when you were on the show last time, and it's great to see you. Well, we didn't see you last time actually, so it's a bit weird seeing. Although my pictures aren't working, so there you go. You can't see me; you just got a black image. But there you go. But it's great to have you with us again, Greg. And then you've earlier on you heard Jason Lane chipping in with a little bit of advice, and he's also been plugging his products to Andre and putting him off as well. So hello, Jason.
I don't know what you're talking about. Hey guys, how you doing?
That's it. So Jason is a former guest on the show again, and he was on talking about the dry plate holders, which are actually they're going out now as well, aren't they?
Yeah, there's been quite a few have received them already. So yeah, we're pretty excited. Been getting some good feedback. So,
and those are sold at Freestyle, right, Jason?
They will be. So all the holders are going out to the backers for the Kickstarter campaign, and the rest of the production run is on its way here. And once they get here and I've gone through them and put some more together, then yeah, very likely I think Freestyle is going to pick them up.
Great. So I will head over on one of my lunch breaks down to Freestyle and pick one up. Is it compatible with my camera?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Sweet.
Excellent. And then we've
Analog Wonderland in the UK. Jason, is that how are those chats going? Or Steve? You missed Steve Lloyd out, by the way.
Yeah, well, he started off
heading that way next, I think.
Yeah, well, not quite. I'm putting you down as under S, so we'll get to Steve. Don't worry.
Okay. So yeah, Analog Wonderland. You were nodding your head, Steve.
Yeah, but he can't answer until we get to him, you see. So there you go. He's been good now. And then Jimmy Hickford, who's doing our video recording today. So this show will go out on YouTube if you wish to see what's been going on. So hello, Jimmy.
Evening, guys.
Great to have you with us again, and you did a great job for us last time for 2 Tunnux bars. So perhaps it's going to be 3 Tunnux bars this time. So thanks again, Jimmy.
No problem.
And then we've got John Money, who got mentioned earlier on because of donating an enlarger. Hello, John.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for having me.
Isn't that the Truman Show you just done there? Hello, good evening.
I think it is, yeah.
Something like that. So, so great to have you with us, John. And then we've got another former guest in the shape of Joseph Brunches. Hello, Joseph.
Hello.
It's great to have you with us again.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
I think the only person in this group that I've actually met in person is Ethan. So hello again, Ethan.
And just on your video feed, you got that's a Chamonix in the background, isn't it? There.
Oh yeah, it's 11 by 14.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing.
Wow.
Yeah, and some very large, I assume, printed, darkroom printed prints on the wall there as well.
Oh yeah, I just got a rollback for my Epson printer, so I've been printing 16 by 52 inch prints.
Wow.
So what I did was I kind of made a pseudo circuit camera out of a bunch of 4x5 shots. So I just did a bunch of overlaps of 4x5 shots of some still scenes, and then spliced them together in Photoshop, and then made mega prints out of them.
So there you go, Andrew. That's how you do it.
Better. It's a lot cheaper than buying a circuit camera in the film.
Right, and thank you, Joseph. And then we also have Nick Lyle, who's been pretty much heckling in the chat all the way through this podcast and putting us off quite royally. Hello, Nick.
Hello. I don't think I'll ever be able to put you off your stride, Simon.
Oh, I don't know. You have a couple of times already. Great to have you with us, Nick. Last but certainly not least, Steve Lloyd of Chroma Camera. Hello, Steve.
You all right, Simon? How's it going, mate?
It's going well. Good to see you again. Although it must
been a while.
It must be about 10 days since I last saw you. So
at least.
Yeah, and in those 10 days, or perhaps it's taken you a little bit longer than 10 days, but you've been you've been setting the internet on fire yesterday or last night, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit. I wasn't quite expecting the response, to be fair. Although anything Instax related does get quite exciting, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's not just the Instax one though. I mean, I'm not even going to talk about the Instax one. I bet there was a picture of a electronic large format shutter stuck in front of my Aero Hectar that you've had since lockdown, and so do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It's something I've been working on with Dave Walker. I don't know if anyone saw it, but he built basically a global electronic shutter for his box camera a few months back. And I kind of got in touch with him through Instagram to basically put forward the idea of going a bit nuts and supersizing it to large format. So we've been working on that together for the last probably about 2 months. So lots of late nights, kind of 1 a.m. conversations. Really need more sleep. So we've been backs and forwards on the design, and Dave's like a Arduino genius, so he's been doing the coding, and I've designed the kind of holder for it and the remote. So we've now got a functioning 90mm diameter global electronic shutter that will fit on any lens. So as you say, it's sitting on your Aero Hectar at the moment on my Adventure. And as a bit of a test bed, I built the same shutter with an Arduino controller inside an Instax wide body with a Kiev 88 lens, because I like to make things difficult for myself. Yeah. So I actually managed to get probably the first shot off that last night, kind of 2.88 of a second. Electronic shutter, and it worked, which is always nice.
Yeah.
So, what kind of shutter speeds is it capable of, Steve?
What, sorry?
What kind of shutter speeds is it capable of?
At the moment, it's coded to the fastest it will go is a 60th of a second. That's mainly down to the panels we use, and they're just commercial panels. So Dave's been chatting to a manufacturer of panels to have some more custom units made that should give us some faster shutter speeds, and then we've coded everything then down from 60th, so right back as far as 8 seconds, then bulb and timed. So you kind of cover all bases up to that. The panels that we're using now have about 2 stops of sort of ND filtration when the shutter's open. So again, the better panels I think we'll be using will remove most of that. But functionally, it works. It's a nice BT unit. I'd say the unit on the large format lens works in the same way at the moment.
Steve, when the question that everyone wants to know is when will it be available, and what the price point is? No need to put you on the spot, really.
I don't mind being on the spot. It doesn't bother me. When it'll be available, me and Dave are actually talking right now while I'm on here as well, looking at manufacturers say for the components. So he's been chatting to a couple of Far Eastern manufacturers of the panels. We need to figure out what kind of costings we can get those for, and the controllers. I would like to bring it in under 150 for a large format shutter. I'm a big fan of trying to make things affordable. I'm not really a particularly big fan of going, it's going to be this untouchable product that 3 people in the world will afford to buy.
That sounds brilliant.
Sorry, I've just seen a comment there. Cheers, Nick. Put me down for one. So, I want things to be realistic. So that's the kind of target I'm looking at.
Is it the sort of thing you might want to do Kickstarter for, or wouldn't? It's a bit too niche. Is it a bit too niche for Kickstarter?
I think it. Well, to be fair, I mean, let's say myself and Jason have just done a 120-year-old process. So that's quite niche.
Yeah, true.
So I think niche is our middle name. But I think
true,
it'll have to be a Kickstarter thing, just for the funding point of view.
Yeah.
I'm tiny. I don't have the funds or the resource behind me to bring it any other way, really, other than maybe some beta units. So I've just got a question there, Joe. So the largest lens, the front of the lens is largely irrelevant. We'll make the mount fit whatever lens. The actual panels that we use and give us a 90 millimeter diameter sort of shutter.
And so, just so that I'm clear as the large format beginner here, so the idea of this is so that you can use it with barrel lenses that don't have built-in shutters, correct? Cool.
Yeah. So if you don't want to use a top hat to cover your lens, or a dark slide, or however you want to do it, or a guillotine shutter, things like that, then the idea is it'll just slot over the front like a Cokin style filter, or a bowler hat. Yeah, as AJ says. How big is that, Andrew?
The reason I was asking
85 millimeters.
I was looking for something for this.
Wow. How big is that, Joseph? Yeah, that's
about
big.
5 inches across.
Okay, look, I can see where this is going.
How heavy is it?
Who's got the bigger lens? We've had this thing before. There goes Nick. Look, I knew he couldn't resist it. So this is pure podcast gold. Right? If you're not watching this on video on YouTube, you need to. So first of all, because I held mine up first, that's about 85 millimeters. So that'll be okay, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
We're just glad you can still get it up, Andrew.
Yeah. I mean, from a panel point of view, obviously, they're the panels I'm using at the moment, which are off-the-shelf panels. I don't know as yet, but we could potentially look at larger panels as well if we're going to the manufacturers anyway. It's early days from part-wise, but I think 90 mil will probably cover a lot of lenses, unless you're mega barrel lenses like the ones here. I've also designed a drop-in version that goes specifically for chroma. That's a magnetic mount that fits behind the front standard. That was like the first design that I did, kind of dropped in behind the aero, but I then moved to a more kind of general mount with the front mount. So that's quite exciting.
It is really
made
exciting.
Up everyone kind of took it quite well last night. So
you should be. I think what you're doing with chroma camera from the early days when you were touting around your acrylic camera, and to the strides you've made, and the way you're thinking and the creativity you're showing, I think you should be applauded, and it's brilliant for encouraging youngsters like Andre Domingues to come into the. I know he hasn't bought one of your cameras yet, but
no,
maybe,
not yet. But see if you do want to send one in testing to the Negative Positives podcast, but but seriously, one of the things that I find really interesting is that let's say if you're in 35 millimeter or medium format, you could settle into something of a system that you like. Let's say like a Nikon F3, and then start buying a bunch of lenses, or like a Pentax 6.7 and buying a bunch of lenses. What I find extremely interesting about 4x5 is that, more so than any other format, it makes me want to have different cameras for different purposes. Something like Ethan is working on right now, a Cameradactyl OG that can fit a Graphmatic back. I'm super excited to use that for 6 shots of just fun wide angle, casual street photography. Yeah. On the other end of things, my new to me Bush Pressman 4x5 I want to start doing some like handheld, more of a normal lens looking street portraits of folks on the street, and then making contact prints that I can mail to them. Down the line, having something that's a little bit more flexible, like a Carbon Adventure, that can shoot, obviously normal double dark slides, chromographica plate holders, roll film backs, using barrel lenses that mine can't take because the actual opening is too small. Like it's just a huge rabbit hole to fall down that I haven't really had in a while. I mean, I've been shooting for about 5-6 years now, and it's funny how with 35 and medium format you can kind of get to a point where it's like, I can make my images better, but there's not that nerdy, gassy, like I can just get lost in all of this. And it's fun to be, right at the edge of that rabbit hole again.
Well, that's a good point now to kick us off on some of your questions and things that you would like to know more of. So take it away, Andre. Let's see if we can help you out.
Sure. So, we already introduced the whole question of if size matters. But one thing that I do want to ask is, does your loop size and magnification matter quite a bit? Are there certain ones that are better than others? I've got one that's like a teeny tiny little one that's 7 times, and one that's much bigger that I use on my light table that's also 7 times magnification. But in y'all's view, being somebody who's pretty new to focusing on the ground glass, what do you use? Where do you get started? Fire away.
Well, if I can kick off that, I think if you're going to use a loop, then you probably don't realistically want to go any more than 6 times, Andre. Okay, trust me on that. 4 times or 6 times is absolutely enough. Any bigger than that, it starts becoming really difficult. I don't know whether that's... Someone here is probably going to explain to me why it is difficult, but it is 4 to 6 times. Personally, I don't know, you're a spectacle wearer. Are you myopic in your prescription? Are you short-sighted, Andre, or...?
I can see things close, things far away. Without my glasses, I can't see. When
I take my glasses off, you've all disappeared into one sort of haze. And if I get to there with my microphone, people, this is great TV again. I've got a focal distance of about 6 inches, 4 to 6 inches. So actually, if you're short-sighted, it's great because I can get right close to the ground glass, and I don't really need the loop. I have a 4 times or a 6 times fancy Schneider or something, I think, but I don't think I ever get it out.
So you're saying you're literally loopy then?
Yeah. So can one of you clever people explain to me why it is 4 times or 6 times is kind of perfect?
I think Jason Lane was just about to do that, and just for anybody that's unaware of Jason Lane, apart from making dry plates and holders and things like that, is also an optical engineer as well. So if it's anything to do with lenses, Jason's your man.
Jason.
So I can make stuff up, and you guys would never know.
That's true.
No, 4 to 6, it makes a lot of sense, Andrew. I think if you get too high of a magnification, the actual the structure of the ground glass, which is I don't know if folks know this, but ground glass is really just a lot of micro cracks on the surface of the glass. I think that starts being resolved, the individual cracks, and it sort of interferes with seeing the image. Personally, I have an old throwaway magnifier off of I forget the actual TLR, but the magnifier off a twin lens reflex.
Oh yeah,
and I use that, and it's nice. And I wish I could remember the brand name, but it was removable, intended to be removable, and so when I place that up against the ground glass, it's in focus, and that's good enough for me. It works really well. And it folds up and stuff too, and I can put it in my pocket and stuff, or lose it, which I do often. But that's probably right in that range too. It makes a lot of sense.
What you need to get yourself, Andre, is a Amazon Basics shower hanger thingy bob. Okay, Now, what I mean by that is...
I was going to say, break that down for me, because I'm not following.
If you just wait a second. Talk about yourself.
The other thing...
I think there's a photo of it on the group.
So...
Just get a lanyard. Hang it around your neck.
Just while we're waiting for Andrew to dig his shower technique, and just a quick question about anybody that uses anything outside of between 4 to 6. Does anybody in this group use something more magnifying or less magnifying?
So I've actually been making those micro scratches while you guys were talking, making some ground glasses, and I have found, within a certain range, within the endpoints, you can make very fine or very coarse scratches in a ground glass. And it tends to be, I think, that the coarser the scratches, the more light that's going to be picked up by each pixel or equivalent of a pixel, right? And you get a brighter ground glass that is harder to focus on, or harder to focus on with a extreme magnification. If you have a very fine grind, like I think I've been using something like 200 grit grinding compound. I've ground things up to 800 grit, where you can get a really big magnification because the scratches in the ground glass are very, very fine. But the problem is then it becomes extremely dim. So I think there's kind of a trade-off, and I have a bunch of different loops for different types of ground glasses. So, if I'm shooting studio work, not that I always choose my ground glass depending upon what I'm doing, but if I have a very fine ground glass, because I can turn all the lights on and turn the modeling lamps on and see things in the dim and get extremely good, focus with like a 10 or 12x loop. But yeah, usually I'm using a 4x on these guys, which are, both dim and scratchy because they're acrylic. But generally, I don't even use the ground glass. That helps.
So the thing is, once you've got your loop, along with all your other large format accessories, you either need a photographer's waistcoat, right, or you need an Amazon Basics bag, which unzips. So it has a hook on it to hang on your tripod, and in there I keep filters, a spot meter, a fold-up grey card, a loop if I bother to have it, some filter holders, and all that kind of stuff. The kind of stuff that you just don't know what to do with. You're out in the field, you get yourself one of those and hang it on there, and
that can just hang on the bottom of the tripod.
That just hangs on your tripod, and it gives you a little bit of extra weight. And then when you're done, you can just slip things in there, and all your little odds and sods, your little bits and pieces that you lose. How many times do you tap in your pockets looking for something? You've put something in a pocket somewhere and stick it in there.
Thank you for the suggestion, Andrew.
There you go.
Sure to take a look at that. All right. Well, thank you guys for answering that. Are you ready to move on to the next question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So one of the reasons why it took me a while to get back into large format was because my experience with it in college was pretty miserable. We had an old rickety 4x5 field camera that, there was a fair amount of play in it. It didn't feel like this solid, light, tight thing. There was probably some pinholes in the bellows, from many years of just being battered around by students not knowing what the hell they were doing, myself included. And the ground glass on it and the lens that I was using of this old 90 f8 was so dim and hard to see that I just kind of assume that, there's probably a better camera, better ground glass, etc., a faster lens. It's probably a little bit brighter, but not by much. Obviously, having seen some new things since then, I know that you can actually get things a lot brighter. But on the topic of Fresnel lenses, what are y'all's opinions on them? Also, where should they go? What kind should you pick if you do choose to use one?
Anybody got a burning desire to talk about Fresnels?
I
use
Joseph,
acrylic Fresnel.
You stuck your hand up first, mate.
Sorry, go on. I jumped in there.
Oh, okay. My Chamonix 4x5 has the Fresnel lens on it, and my 8x10 and 11x14 do not. I think it's useful for the smaller formats, but when it gets bigger, it's not it's not really worth it.
Is there there's a lot of chitter chatter online. I've seen it about going and buying a $5 magnifier thing, and then Mike Walker from Walker Camera says, "Oh no, you've got to watch the pitch of the Fresnel lenses, and you could make it worse." So.
Yeah, it's basically the coarseness of the concentric circles.
Yeah.
So those I've tested out the kind of cheap magnifiers, and they work in that they brighten up the image. But if you're going to use a loop, they kind of take all the detail out of it, really.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm interested, for example, is wanting to use the Bush Pressman handheld. If there's any situation where I do want to use the ground glass just for framing, my back doesn't have the little kind of cloth corners for the hood. They must have gotten ripped off at some point. And so it can be really hard to see that in daylight if I don't have a dark cloth over it, if I'm using it handheld. So that was a potential idea that I had was, well, if I'm using it handheld, maybe adding a Fresnel lens there will brighten things up. I'm not going to be focusing on the actual ground glass. I've got the top-mounted rangefinder. I'm probably going to be stopping down quite a bit. I've got the focusing scale on the bed and the sports finder. So everything's going to be approximated in using the wiggle room of the depth of field. But for just kind of checking my corners, especially in daylight, and having that be bright enough to where I can actually see them, that's something that I'm potentially interested in.
Nick?
Yeah, so I use a lot of press cameras, and they often come with a Fresnel, at least the Crown Graphics come with a Fresnel lens. And they do really help for that holding it up quick and hasty work. And that's fine if you're going to stop down a bit and act like a press photographer. You don't really need to scrutinize the ground glass to focus if you're stopped down enough. But if you do need to, another trick that I use is they make these hoodman loops for looking at the LCD screen on the back of a digital camera, and I've got one here you can see. It's basically a black rubber thing that almost covers 6x9. It has adjustable diopter, so you can make it focus with your eyesight. You do have to take your glasses off. But what I suggest for large format is that you attach a black cardboard sheet to it so that you can black out the whole ground glass and then slide it around to inspect the corners. Because the biggest problem is the light that's coming in and making it hard to see the ground glass. So it basically replaces a dark cloth with a dark loop. And that I use that a lot with medium format ground glass, but you could use it, as I mentioned, with a cardboard shade on a large format camera. And it's fast. You can just pick it up, put it there, and then set it down. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to change the configuration of the camera to use it.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it.
Sorry, go on.
I was to say, if you take a look at Dave Burnett's work for the 2012 Olympics, he shot with a speed graphic with the Aero Ector and a Cambo back on it. The Cambo back is very much like Nick was just saying. It just clips straight on the back, and it's got an eye viewer and a mirror in it, so it flips the image the other way around. And it's just, in bright sunlight, you can see everything, and you can focus down to an eyelash. So I'd recommend one of those, definitely.
That's not one of these, I've also been seeing these reflex finders that also correct the upside down thing.
I'll get it and show it to you. I'll go and get it. Carry on chatting.
So I suppose what the answer to your question really, Andre, is if you're going to use 4.5 handheld, and you want to make life as easy as possible, what's the best? What's the best way? I mean, Steve is making handheld, 4.5 cameras, aren't you? Or you are, aren't you, Steve? And so is Ethan.
Yeah. I put my Fresnels underneath the glass with the rough side, if you like, facing the glass. And so they brighten up the image, basically, and certainly the handheld stuff, they make a big difference for your kind of quicker work. It's a very personal preference with using a loop.
Because the focus point is still on the ground glass, isn't it? The Fresnel is just intensifying the light rays.
Yeah, the ground.
No, that's not.
No.
That Jason is jumping out of his seat. Maybe right. It changes the
if you don't move the glass,
point of the light rays, so it doesn't actually make anything brighter. It just changes where they all go, which is why I do not like them. Because and like Joby was saying, you can't really use one on a really large format back, right? Because if all the light is hitting and scattering at the film plane, and then you put a Fresnel over it, it concentrates it to one point, right? So you're actually just seeing more of the light. There is no more light. But the problem with like an 11x14 is the focus point then is, many feet back, and you can't really use it effectively. And so I actually dislike Fresnel lenses because it makes it kind of hard to check sharpness on the edge kind of in line with the lens. Maybe Jason can explain a little bit better.
Yeah, so Ethan, I think I agree with you on the larger formats. I'm relatively new to large format, to be honest. Myself, I got into it 4 or 5 years ago, and with a speed graphic, which did not have a Fresnel lens, and I had trouble seeing the whole ground glass, which for the 4x5 I kind of wanted to see for composition, and so I looked into a Fresnel lens. If you pick the right one and put it in the right place, then it works really well. And what I figured out looking into it from my lens design perspective was if you're going to put an aftermarket Fresnel lens on, the easiest, most non-intrusive way to do that is put it after the ground glass, and you select a Fresnel lens that's roughly the focal length of the lenses that you put on there. And it from my perspective, it works a lot like a condenser lens does. And I won't put you guys to sleep explaining that.
So you're not moving the rough side of your ground glass. That's staying in the focus plane. Yes. And the reason for that is to maintain focus. So when you put the Fresnel lens in front of the ground glass, you actually offset the focus distance, not by the actual thickness of the Fresnel lens, but the optical path length. So the index of refraction of the plastic. Because they are focusing.
Right. So
when you're saying, sorry, Jason, when you say in front, you mean towards the lens, don't you? Is that what you mean?
Oh, yeah. Unless you're taking a selfie, I guess, and that would be.
Yeah. Well, I just need to be clear.
So I put my Fresnel lens between myself and the ground glass.
Yes.
And that worked really well for the 4x5. And I just picked a cheap one off of eBay. I guess I'm not that picky.
But and you just like hold it on top of there?
No, I unscrewed there's I think the Bushman is similar, where there's retainers that hold the ground glass in place, and so I took those off. Yeah, like Ethan's. I took those off and stuck it behind there, and since I'm a paranoid engineer, I double check measurements and stuff, and
right.
And
so when you're buying a Fresnel lens, can you see somewhere on the site what focal length it has? Then is that?
Yeah. Okay. And if they don't tell you what the focal length is, then forget it. Go find another one.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. That's fantastic information.
And to Ethan's point, so I did the same thing for my whole plate camera and for my 8x10, and like he said, you have to start getting so far back from the thing that I can't fit underneath my jacket, which I use as a dark cloth. So, but so I still have to move my head around a little bit, but it is useful, at least to me.
My only experience, I had one fitted. I think it came with it on my bomb camera, and that's right, because he sent me all the way from Italy a replacement ground glass, and it had Fresnel with it as well.
Yeah.
And I actually found it a lot harder to focus for that very reason. I found I couldn't see the image clearly. I was moving my head around, and I don't know whether it was just the wrong one, but I took it off, and I can now see the whole image without bits of it going dark. That's what was happening. It was a weird optical aberration.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe the focal length of the Fresnel was different than what the lenses were that you had on there.
Anyway, I took it off and I just got the ground glass, and it's fine.
I had another 4x5 that had a ground glass and a Fresnel on it, and the Fresnel was in front of the ground glass, and this is part of why I started digging into it. And I was getting focus issues with that, and so I did a bunch of measurements and calculating and stuff like that, and figured out that that must have been an aftermarket Fresnel that wasn't accounted for in the stack up of distances. And when I put it behind the ground glass, everything came into focus. So if you do get a large format camera that has a Fresnel on it, and you're getting focus issues, that was the first thing I look at.
Can we? Because I've just noticed in the chat there've been a few questions just in clarification. So in very simple terms, can we talk about where the Fresnel will go, and also which way round the ground glass goes? Just in very simple terms, just as a quick summary. Jason.
It kind of depends on what the original intent of the camera was, but there's only so many combinations of ground glass and Fresnel that you can try out. I think for the most part it's ground glass with the ground surface facing the lens, and then the Fresnel afterwards. Although there are exceptions. I've seen the Fresnel in front, between the lens and the ground glass. I think almost universally the ground glass is facing towards the lens, so the front of the camera. But if you're really particular about focus, and your focusing is good, but you're still seeing a change in your focus point and your developed negatives, then that might be something to look at.
You know all about that, Simon, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And, although that wasn't with the Fresnel, was the camera I was using doesn't have one. And actually, that's another thing. I'm particularly interested in this subject because I was out with I forgot his name. Grainy Blur. What's his name? Alex Purcell, yeah. That's it. I know him better from his Twitter handle. And anyway, so I was out with him a couple of weeks ago, and I was using for the first time my 75mm. Actually, no, I used that before, but it was second time out with it, but I hadn't seen any pictures developed with it. With my 75mm as they say in Scotland, Granddagon lens, and I think it's a 6 point something. It's not a particularly fast lens, and it was dark, and my meridian, as in the screen was dark, and my meridian camera doesn't have a Fresnel, and I knew that it was possible to use this lens, but I actually didn't realise that it wasn't particularly compatible when it's in portrait mode. So because it was just too wide for it to be in portrait. Is that you tapping that keyboard there, Jason? I don't know. Somebody.
No, that's Steve.
Is that Steve, is it? All right.
Shut up.
Yes. Thanks, Steve. With his Cray supercomputer behind him as well, which I've only just noticed. So the point being is I got the shots back, or rather Alex actually developed two of them for me because I borrowed a holder from him, and he took that back and did a great job of developing them. Except the shots aren't actually 4x5 because the bed of my camera, because I shot in portrait mode, the bed of my camera was well and truly in the shot, and it was cropping the shot, and I had no idea at the time when I was taking the shot that I was actually I just simply couldn't see the edges at all. So Fresnel would have been incredibly useful for me in that particular shot. But just quickly going back to Jason's point about focal length and having the correct one. Well, does that mean you swap out Fresnels depending on what lens you're using?
No, I don't. So, but granted, I don't use really wide lenses. I'm sort of in the normal focal length to a little bit narrow, but I think in general, if you get close, that's good enough. I will add that I know this doesn't apply to Andre, but for folks who come across really antique cameras, so cameras that were out before Fresnel lenses were even made, it's just a ground glass. If you wanted to add one to it, use that rule of thumb, roughly the focal length of the lenses that you shoot, and put it behind the ground glass, so between you and the ground glass, with the grooves facing the glass, just to protect them, I think is a good approach.
And anybody else got any questions on answers on that one?
Shoot SLR.
Well, yeah, definitely. The large format SLR. I mean, that was one of the small one Dave brought to my house, a 2x3 SLR, and I've got to say that was just fantastic. Just looking at an image through a large format image, although it was 2x3 or 4. Actually, no, it was 4x4, isn't it? 4 inches by 4 inches was the that's configured, and that's just beautiful. So,
and I have to say that of all the large format, certainly the 5.4 speed graphics and crowns, I'd never ever shoot with anything apart from looking on the ground glass screen with a linen tester. I'd never used a rangefinder ever. I mean, I can't think why I'd ever want to use a rangefinder really. So I always use a tripod unless I'm shooting with an SLR. But if you're starting with large format, honestly, I would seriously recommend a tin can. 5x4 tin can. You will learn so much from that. It's free. Andrew, you've made them. Literally take you half a day to make one, and this taken one of the best pictures I've ever taken.
Yeah, no, they're great.
Seriously,
and they're pinhole.
You will learn
well,
so much, and you will be in the dark room and go for it. Free
Thank
cameras.
You, Dave.
Free cameras.
I appreciate it.
So you can get right back to pinhole photography, Andre, and large format. And then there are some really sexy, beautifully made wooden large format pinhole cameras, or you can make one if you're skillful.
Skillful I am not, and I don't go around power tools. Ever since my heart surgery, I'm on blood thinners, and I stay well away.
Well, you get yourself some black foam core, and you can make yourself anything. Anyway, have we defeated the Fresnel question there?
I think so. You guys ready for next two-parter?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I was noticing the other day when I was shooting was I started just getting paranoid and thinking to myself, A, is it bad to leave your shutter cocked for a long period of time? And B, in the case of my camera, I've got a Graphmatic back in the spring back, and obviously being thicker, it's putting more pressure on those springs than a normal thinner double dark slide. So is it bad to keep the Graphmatic in the spring back for a long period of time, or if I'm not using it, not at home, should I take it out?
Yeah, take it out. Definitely take it out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the lens go, I mean, it's probably a good idea not to leave it cocked. Certainly on my RB lenses, you just take them off and press something on the back and you just release the shutter in the RB lenses. So I'm guessing it's the same with large format, unless someone's going to say different.
I think I would always deactivate everything, and I don't know half as much as all you guys know, but it's a bit like this thing here has got 2 spring tensions in it, and I just turn them all off when I'm not using it.
It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I think so.
Why put any camera under stress or any parts under stress? Yeah. So.
Yeah, I noticed that there were some times when I was shooting with the Graphmatic that I would see something and be like, oh, I want to take a picture of that. So I would go ahead and pull out the dark slide, right, to cycle another sheet to the front and kind of make it live. It's got the little red dot, cock my lens, and then end up deciding like, no, that wasn't right. And then now I'm walking, potentially 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Hell, it could be an hour or so until I find another thing that I want to take a picture of. And I can't slide a dark slide back in on the Graphmatic. So it's live, and I can't do.
Andre, hours are fine. We're talking months.
Yeah, I just
Hours,
say
days, weeks, you're not going to break anything.
no,
Yeah, if you're
just
going to
at
put
the end of
lenses
the
into
day,
storage.
when you finish at the end of the day, turn it all off. Yeah,
Sounds good.
I do the same with mine too. I'll walk around, or I'll have a light in the studio, and it'll be set for an hour sometimes during a change. But
yeah,
I have no problem with it at all. But over time, yeah, just like with RB and RZ lenses, you don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, completely.
Just as an aside to all this, it's also good practice, and I'm not saying that I do this, but perhaps I should. But if you have a relatively large collection of lenses and cameras and things like that with mechanical parts on them, it's a good idea to use them. Not necessarily run any film through them, but periodically. I mean, what that is, don't know. It could be every 6 months or whatever. But it's a good thing to hit the shutters and open the apertures up and close them down and so on, because so many lenses, and my experience is more in the smaller formats, but lots of lenses that are excellent lenses, and they was put away and they was put away in a dry place and stored and so on. And it was great when I last used it, and then you bring it out and the aperture's stuck. And stuff like that, and the aperture's stuck because it hasn't been used. And so the amount of times I see beautiful pieces of equipment that just simply don't work anymore because they've not been used, I've lost count. So if you do have a lot of gear, then it's a good idea every now and again go out there and just press all the buttons on everything
and take your batteries out.
I agree with that.
That's a good point.
Andre, with your Bush Pressman camera, is it the speed graphics that had those fancy red lights that acted as a rangefinder in the dark? Somebody told me.
I think those are some speed graphics.
They don't have.
It projects like two light things,
and they meet up. That sounds the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, it's not specific to speed graphics. So you're talking mainly about the CalArt rangefinders, and there may be other makes that did this as well. Because my Meridian uses a very similar CalArt rangefinder, and you can convert them and make them shine laser beams out at them. And
well, that's right, because people think they're going to get shot, don't they? If suddenly you've got this thing on their forehead.
Exactly,
it must be fantastic.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it's more about a brand of rangefinders rather than being specific to cameras. That
right? I just heard. I think it was on the FPP. I heard somebody talking about them, and he discovered for the first time that he actually had didn't know what it was, and suddenly realised that it was a thing for focusing in the dark.
Yeah, Mark Dazell's got a graphic that does that.
Yeah, that was Mark, wasn't it? Yeah, that's it.
And I want to say that's only on the modern ones, relatively speaking. From I think the 70s, all the older CalArt rangefinders lack that. It's the ones that you see where the rangefinder is on top of the camera. It's like a little box on top of the camera. Those are the modern ones, and they usually have battery damage because people forget that there's a battery in there to operate that.
What do you mean by modern, by the way, Nick?
70s, I think.
70s, yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Because my Meridian is from 1949 and it's got an original CalArt on it, and that has it's got the battery contacts for doing just that, and it's on the side as well. So it does go back a long way. That, although it obviously doesn't shine laser beams, but that's if you convert them.
Yeah, but not on the graphic models. I think they didn't introduce those until the later models. I can see that your Meridian is more advanced, but at least in the speed and crown graphics, it only shows up towards the end of their.
Yeah, my 47 pacemaker with the side-mounted CalArt doesn't have that. Otherwise, I'd be using that with my cat.
Okay, next up. So I hear a lot of things, especially once you start getting into darkroom printing, about people making sure that their film holders are free of dust. When you are actually kind of carrying them around with you, how do you store them? Do you guys put them in like plastic bags? And also another thing, I've got a couple double dark slides that don't have the little locking thingies to keep the dark slides from coming out. How do you prevent that? Do you put like tape over the tops of them?
Elastic band. Just put an elastic band straight round. It's easy. Works every time.
There's also
can I suggest one thing you do? And I'll tell you this because all the mistakes I've made is I've taken all my dark slides out and I've written on them exposed and new. So that one's new and that one's exposed. Because in the heat of a shoot, when I've got a model there or whatever, I always get it wrong, even though I've got the white and the black. And it helps. It's so simple. It works every time. And yes, plastic bags, or if I'm just going out with 6 for the day, I've just got one of these little rubber bags. And definitely vacuuming them out.
You've got Mr. Stone, who makes the stone gear. So in your over the pond where you are, Andre. So this one holds 5, I think. And again, it's got a neat bag on, and it holds 5 sheet film holders. And then I keep each of those in a Ziploc bag.
Wayne Setzer was giving away this film holder.
Yeah.
I guess that.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Stone Gear one. Yeah, he was.
Yeah. The stone is actually sort of a throwback to the Ganesh, which was the one that Wayne has. And they work out really well. There is a guy right now on eBay that's selling replacement holder latches. He sells them in. Oh yeah, he sells them in groups of 12 or 100, I think.
Okay.
So if you look online, he's selling them. I don't know how easy it is to just grab one of those things and then screw them in. I'm not sure if it's possibly a threading situation where they could be, threaded, so that you couldn't put them back in there, but it might be worth a try.
Can I just show this? This is a 10/8 holder, right? I'm just going to show this because look how cool this is on the end. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's that's neat. It just dials around. And it they can't ever pop out. And that's Victorian. And it's just so smart,
And I can shine some light there on the Graphmatic. It's got just this little wheel, and that just turns there.
Similar, isn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Nice.
If you're trying to add that to the older wooden holders, on the wooden holders at least, they're just threaded in. So if you get one of those off of eBay, you can just screw it in. I'm not quite sure on newer plastic ones, but in any case, I have a couple of holders that I don't have those on, just like you described, and I'm not smart enough to put a rubber band around them. I'm just careful.
I find once they're loaded up and they're inside a bag, I've never had a problem with one coming out. I've got loads that don't have those on.
Yeah, there's enough friction on the dark slides, I think, that they don't just pop out, I guess.
Certainly on the new Chroma Graphica, is that what it's called? The plate, dry plate. There's certainly enough friction on those bad boys. I didn't think I was ever going to get the dark slide out, so they're not going to fall out accidentally.
When you've got a bunch of exposed film that hasn't been processed before, do you leave them in the film holders, or do you go into a changing bag or a dark room and put them inside of a box until you're ready to develop them? How do you guys go about doing that? I don't have a huge number of actually everything I have right now is borrowed. The Graphmatic is borrowed. I've got 4 double dark slides that are borrowed.
Yeah, mine will go back in the box.
Yeah, I've got tons of boxes if you need them.
I make a practice of when I open a new box, right, there's a cardboard divider and probably a few packs if you have a pack of 100. And so the bottom, just however you want to do it, but just make yourself a system. So for me, always the bottom bag is exposed film or paper, and then the top ones are new. And so when I load, I also unload. But also I want to point out that I start with Ziploc bags at the beginning of every trip, and then I wind up with just you can put 3 in your back pocket.
Yeah.
I don't try and be too precious about it because it's good to have big pockets.
Yeah, I don't know if my pockets are big enough for that, Mr. Moses. I don't have your photographer jeans.
Maybe I will send you a pair.
I think use it as packing material for when you send the OG.
Andre, I don't think there's a firm answer to your question. The answer is really
everybody's got their differences.
When I went to France for a few days, I knew I wasn't going to have enough dark slide film holders with me, so I had a changing bag, and I took at the end of the day, I took the film out and put it in a box in the dark side, and I had one box for normal development, and then where I was shooting scenes where the contrast range was extreme, I labeled that box up as reduced development. So that's just a slightly different subject. So that's the flexibility of 4.5 photography. You can do that. But normally when I'm going out, I just load probably enough sheets up to fit the developing tank I'm going to use, and I come home and I take 6 sheets out with me, and I'll put them either in my 20th century camera spiral or my mod 54, or I take 4 sheets out and put them in the SP445. So I take enough out. Probably 6 is what I go out with. It helps me concentrate, focus the mind, and then when I come back, I know I can develop them all together in one tank.
And I do the same. I always load per tank, so I either take 3 holders or 6 holders or 9 holders.
Because I don't want to have sheets just lying around. I have enough of that with 35mm and 120. So I want to get those things done.
For you and Dave, if you're taking out just the number of sheets that will fit your developing tank, the specific way that you do your developing, Andrew, where if you've got a really high contrast lighting scene where your subject brightness range is more than 5 stops, and then you're reducing your developing time. If you've got, let's say, sun came out like from behind the clouds, and you've got a shot where one of those is going to be like, all right, well, that's going to be the solitary sheet that's going to get the reduced development. Then do you separate them into a different box?
Yeah, I have done in the past. These days, I'm tending to use mostly either Pyrocat HD, or I've started playing around with Caffenol CL, and so you don't need to worry quite so much about that. But if I'm developing in something like ID11 1+1, which is really still my standard, then I'll alternate between a time that I've hit upon where I know I'm going to get a nice negative in the enlarger, and that'll be different to your time, and it might not even be the same as on the on the websites or even on the film guidelines. It's your own time. I know I want to get a print of grade 2.5 or 3 as a standard, and I develop the negative for that. So I would have a standard time, and then I would just cut it by probably 20% or something like that, 25%. For what you might want to call an N-1 development, if you want to call it that.
As we're kind of getting into topics of developing it in darkroom printing, this is one of these where it may just be down to my relative inexperience in the darkroom, but can you split grade print contact prints?
Yeah, I would think so.
Joseph's nodding his head sagely at the moment, so let's head over to Joseph.
You can use contrast filters, can't you, Joseph, on contact printing?
Yes, you can. Yeah, because as long as it doesn't matter. It's like the filter is still affecting the paper, whether it's behind the film or in front of the film.
Mm-hmm. Now, so this is kind of going a little bit more broader, but there's various options that you have, right, with filtration in the darkroom, whether you're putting it above the lens or below the lens. When you get into contact print, also, can you put the filter underneath the negative or over the negative, or should it still remain on the enlarger side, either above or below the lens?
Well, you don't want anything between the film and the paper, because the contact is what makes it a very sharp image. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason why it can't just be in the holder underneath your lens that you're shining light in, or I have a variable contrast head on one of my enlargers, so it's behind everything, shining down through the lens. So it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Gotcha. So if you've got a color head, as Joseph was saying, you've got a color head on your enlarger, then you can just dial those filters in the normal way. Or if you want to use the Ilford under the lens holders, you can use those. If you're doing proper split grade printing, as a standard, Wayne Setzer in our Facebook group does it all the time. He'd certainly recommend the use of the Ilford under the lens filters, and so would I, because it's so much easier to take those filters out and put a new one in without having to fiddle around with dials on the top of the enlarger head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the 4x5, it's just a condenser. The lens turret, because each lens is screwed in with a little retaining ring on a lens plate that then mounts onto that rotating turret.
Wow.
I was taking a look, and I don't know if there's a way of mounting the little Ilford under the lens one, because it's a little box, and then it's got its own little retaining ring that the tray kind of slides into.
Okay.
But for something like that, is there any downside to putting the filters in the actual tray of the condenser? I heard something yesterday about needing to buy a piece of like heat absorbing glass so that you're not like melting your filter.
Well, it can be a problem if you enlarge your light, depending on the heat that's given off and how long you've got it switched on. I had an enlarger years ago which had a plastic filter tray, and it basically melted. Yeah, and so it can be a problem, depending on the illumination on the light source and how physically hot it gets.
I think you should only use filters like that if the enlarger is designed to do that.
Yeah,
trying to stick filters into one of those hot, areas is really bad news. The one thing I would say about the difference is I have a black and white variable contrast head, so I just turn a dial very simply from 0 to 5, and it's super easy. But the school where I teach, they have Bessler enlargers where they have a little tray underneath that you're sliding them in. And, students, of course, stick their fingers on those filters and get fingerprints on them and everything. So anything you're between your lens and what your print that can diffuse the light or make it blurry it can really affect your image. So if you're using filters like that, you just want to keep them super clean.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
That's the beauty of having them behind everything, is if the filter's behind the negative, then there's nothing between your lens and the negative in the print.
Yeah, I'll do some research, because just even feeling it in there, having the light on while I was testing it, like it gets pretty toasty. So I don't want to put some money into, they'd have to be pretty big. I think they'd have to be those like 5-inch ones from Ilford. Like I don't want to put a bunch of money into that only to have the light heated up too much. So
does it have any kind of? It doesn't have any kind of fan on it then to help keep.
Not that I can see.
No. I've got an Omega D5, and it's got it's either 5 or 6 inch filters that have that tray that slides right underneath the condenser, but it does get red hot in there. And I saw on eBay somebody was selling heat deflecting glass panels of that same size, and I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet, basically because since we moved, I don't have a place to put the enlarger and actually use it. But I definitely recommend taking a look at something like that.
So it sounds like a good idea if you're going to use those filter trays, Andre, to maybe get some kind of, like Greg was suggesting.
Yeah, they heat absorbing glass.
They did sell a swing out arm that I think mine doesn't have will allow like the traditional under the lens filters. You might want to take a look at some of the older catalogs, the Omega catalogs, just to see if you can get a model number. Maybe just set a search on eBay. So if one pops up,
yeah, it's not a bad idea.
I could have sworn that one of the Ilford multi-grade filter kits comes with a clamp-on holder that you clamp onto the lens.
It does.
It does. Yeah. The only issue with that is that with the 3-lens turret,
that's right.
You'd have to mount it on one, and then if you wanted to put it on a different one, you'd have to unscrew it.
Yeah, that's not difficult though, Andre. That's okay. I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's not a massive deal, It's really easy to take.
I've actually got
you can buy 3 kits.
I've actually got one here, so I'll likely do also borrow from the office. There's about like 6 enlargers at the office that are just going unused.
Wow.
But I'll see if I can get that mounted onto say the 135.
One other tip for you, Andre, before we move on. We were talking about unloading your film holders and putting them into bags. inside boxes, the original film boxes. Problem is, a lot of people then send them off, or they lose them, or whatever. One of the things that I know B&H sells them, I know Adorama sells them, and I think Freestyle used to sell them, are these the Delta paper and film safety bags.
I saw those the other day.
They're 10 by 12, and they are very light proof. So if you ever find yourself in a situation like that, or you need multiple bag boxes combination, because you are going to do like N-1 in one stack and N- normal, and then however you want to organize those, get yourself they're real cheap. Get yourself a bag of these. I think they come 5 or 6 to a bag. And then you can use any box. You don't just have to have the film box. That'll make things safe for you.
To add to that, I've got hundreds of boxes around for packing dry plates. So, and sometimes when people need some, I'll send some their way. So,
gotcha. Going back to
Andre, on that note, I got another little tip: is if you are unloading and loading film holders in a dark bag, put a cardboard box in there. It gives you a lot of space.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Going back to the actual picture taking stage, one thing that I would be interested in, doing is starting to play around with some more dynamic filters. Like I think a 10-stop ND filter is something that whenever I see images using one that are really compelling, makes me interested. But the different lenses that I have, one is a Kodak Series 6 something that I have no idea what the filter size is. My 210 doesn't have a front filter thread. How do you guys go about using filters with large format lenses? And you guys have some pretty big glass.
Well, I use for my 3 lenses, which is a Schneider 150 f5.6 and scared to say it now, and a Nikon 90mm f8 and another Schneider 210. And for those, I just use the standard Kokin P size holders, cheap and cheerful, readily available. A lot of people, use the Lee filter system, which is very good. They have I think they're 100mm size gels. Very, very nice and well-made filter systems, but I just haven't shelled the money out for that. But the Kokin stuff works fine, but you do have to have the screw-in adapters. For each lens you have.
Just like step up, step down rings.
Yeah. Just they all fit up, and then you slide the Kokin P holder over the ring. You see, so you just have a different size filter thread to go on the different lenses that you have.
Just as a point, you mentioned a 10-stop ND, and the thing is, you've got a large format camera, so you've got access to some pretty slow film, and your aperture, it should be capable of going down to, certainly f22. Just about anything's going to go down to that, and some will go past that. Now, there are good reasons in some cases why you don't want to go past f22, but really, it's there. If it's available, it's an option for you to use it. But I was when I was out with Alex the other day, I was taking 30-second exposures without a filter, using ISO 100 film, because I was shooting at f22.
You have to take into account also, Simon, that you guys live in the UK and I live on the sunniest place on earth.
Yeah, very true, very true. But
here it's sometimes like the past couple of days have not been sunny 16. It's been like sunny 32.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that CineStill do a 50 ISO film, and and again, that's. Use your small aperture, because generally speaking, when you're actually shooting long exposures, it's usually stopped down anyway, isn't it? You're not trying to capture something in focus and everything in front and behind is going to be out of focus. So use the force, use what you've got with the large format.
Or just get a 2 or 3 stop ND filter, and you'll probably find that together with a small aperture gives you kind of what you want.
Or
you can use multiple exposure techniques to get that same, but slightly. If you look at the work of John Blakemore, he did a lot of studies of using his crown graphic of moving water with lots of small individual exposures, which gives a similar but quite different looking motion effect. So there's all different ways around it.
On my big ball 2.8 lens, I've got printed Waterhouse stops that clip on the front, so I can stop the lens down, which means if I'm shooting at 2.8 like I was on the bull, I was shooting a model in the middle of a field and it's a bright sunny day. I was able to drop in different Waterhouse stops on the front, and I got down to 5.6 with a gradated blend on the edges as well. And they're cheap; they're just bits of plastic. So yeah, that's another option.
I just want to bring Jason Lane into this one now, because I'm thinking that the position of where you actually put the aperture is usually quite critical, and you're just sticking them in front of the lens. So
you know me.
Yeah, well, no, and it's worked. I mean, you're obviously happy with the result that you've got.
Yeah.
So Jason, what's going on there? Were you? Oh, I was going to say, I thought you were pretending not to be listening then.
Yeah, I guess once you get out in front of the front lens, you're starting to mix vignetting with stopping down. I don't know.
I think
whatever works.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it is just whatever works, isn't it? There's no right and there's no wrong. I mean, the end of the day is the negative. It's what's on the negative. So how you get there.
I think on the what I was trying to recall was how that actually affects the Ektar prescription. I think for that family of designs, you'll get a little bit of a change in the aberration. So you may find that like you may add a little bit of coma, but if you stop it down, I mean, you stop it down quite a bit, that stuff goes away anyways. And you obviously don't see this, but I would imagine that if you had the Waterhouse stop too far in front of the lens, you'll start getting some vignetting, some light roll off, which is, I think the rule of thumb that we use is 20 to 30% roll off. You can't really see unless you measure it. But as far as doing that for that type of design, I would.
Dave, if it works for you and you're happy, you're not bothered, are you? Really?
No,
Right.
I mean, for me, that's part of the beauty of it. It's the aberration, the distortion, and how you play with it, and that's part of the beauty of it for me. That's what I love about large format.
While we've got Jay,
cool.
If I can ask a supplementary question, harking back to something Simon said about stopping down, not wanting to go past f/22. I was listening to Ben Horn, another former guest. Actually, he was on a video that I posted into the large format photography Facebook group about exposure, and he says he would not go down past f/45 for diffraction reasons. Jason, would you? Is there a rule about this? And should we worry about diffraction? And what is it?
I was going to let Simon's comment slide because I know he's thinking a smaller format, but since you brought it up,
with large format lenses,
because the diffraction, the Airy disc, the rule of thumb is that it's a function of the f number, but that's an approximation. When you look at the actual,
what is it though, Jason? What is it? What is diffraction?
You ask him. It's this magical thing that
it has to do with
that
the
I would
weight
explain
versus the size of the hole, right? And so, if you're using orthochromatic film, you might have a different measurement.
It's
I like the rule of thumb.
I don't know. It's you look up the definition of Airy disc, and it talks about how normally in geometric optics, which most of us think, you talk in terms of light rays, so the path that the light takes, and geometrically, light travels in a straight path. But that's not always correct. If a photon, or actually a wavefront, you have to start thinking of it in terms of wavefront, passes near the edge of something, it can be deflected, and the common sense analogy I think of, if you guys remember listening to AM or FM radio to a station from a distance, an AM radio station especially, it'll fade in and out. Well, that's a diffractive effect as the signal strengths and weaknesses as it's passing across, through a mountain chain or something between you and the station. But if you haven't listened to AM radio, I guess that doesn't mean anything to you at all. But getting back to my point, it's also a function of the focal length. So for the longer focal lengths that we deal with in large format, you can stop it down a bit further before diffraction limit gets to be a big deal. And I think
how does it affect? Is it an issue with color, black and white film? How does it materialize itself if you suffer from diffraction? Is it apparent in the image from that?
I think the result is a slight loss in the high, the small details. What do you guys call it? The micro contrast. I think that's the buzzword. But so it's a very small blurring. As you stop down the lens, the airy disk, and you can go Google what that means. It gets larger, and so that cuts into your ability to see fine detail. And
okay,
and it's,
I don't think I'm going to worry too much about it.
Well, just as just going to the point that you let slip then about me not wanted to go past f/22 with my, in particular that was with a 75mm lens, and I'm talking on 4x5. So I don't know if it actually goes past f/32 anyway, and most of my lenses don't. They top out at f/32. So are we saying that f/32 on 4x5 is something that we shouldn't be concerned about with a 75mm lens, or I mean, how does that work?
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying that's such a wide lens on 4x5 anyway that much past f/22, it's not going to be. You're not going to get much more in focus at that point.
Yeah, I was going to say on like a normal focal length lens, which is like 150-ish or so, f/32, f/45, probably all right. And as you go larger, you can stop it down farther. I mean, there's a reason that the club in the early 20th centuries call them the f/64 club.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it was super sharp at f/64.
Cool. Good enough for that.
Thank you.
One other option for adding a larger filter to I think these go up to an 82mm barrel diameter, is the Lee gel filter. They call these gel snaps. And basically the premise is that it holds a 4x4 100mm single filter in there. You can't use graduated neutral density filters. It's got to be the square one. Snaps in there like that. And so these are great for contrast filters, ND filters, and then it goes right around the barrel of the lens.
Oh, look at that.
So this is
I think that's one of the questions that I had. Like, I think on my 210, it doesn't have a front filter. So I was confused as to how you actually
you can make those, Steve.
Yeah, these all it is a tab on top, a tab on the bottom, and a heavy duty rubber band. That's all that there is to that. And it's pretty cheap for a Lee piece of gear. I mean, they're ridiculously overpriced, most of the Lee stuff. But these, I think, come in without the filter kit at something like $27. And it's slightly niche because it is only a single slot capability, and you can't do the graduated neutral density, the 4x6 filters.
What's it called again, Greg?
It's a lean filter gel snap.
Gel snap.
And sometimes they sell them in kits with the not the glass filters, they're resin filters. And the kits are like soft filters or contrast filters for black and white or neutral density kits, but they sell them separately as well, just the filter holder, and everybody has them.
Get on it, Chroma cameras. That's what I say.
I'm sure there's some Chinese knockoffs but I've never seen them. But that's an extremely easy way to just add it to, like I said, up to 82 millimeter diameter.
Okay, well, I'd be looking for a Scouse knockoff personally, not in China.
I find that offensive, but true.
I'm just going to say,
Port Market.
Yeah, I'm just going to say we've been on for quite some time now.
Jimmy Hickford's having kittens about the file size.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm thinking, have you got one more question, Andre?
I do have one more question that I've been saving to the end.
Great.
You guys ready?
Certainly are.
Yeah.
All right. What brands of floppy hat do y'all recommend? Because I surely can't be a real
A Tilly T3 is what you want. A Tilly T3.
Perfect.
Look it up. Tilly is, I think they're guaranteed for like decades. And I haven't got one because I've got a National Geographic one. Simon was trying to convince me that we needed LFPP branded large format hats, and the one he showed me, which apparently Johnny Sisson's found,
one.
It looked like someone from the Bill and Ben, the Flower Pot Men. You may not know them, but with this hat, Simon suggested this hat, and if you wear it, you'll look like a flower pot man.
Well, that was,
Google it.
Yeah,
Google Bill and Ben, the Flower Pot Men, and you'll see that's the hat that Simon wants.
Well, that's what Johnny had suggested. So
what does he know?
Exactly. we'll make him work harder.
So a Tilly T3 hat, Andre. Okay.
If you guys end up making any embroidered LFPP patches, I'll make sure to put that on my Tilly T3 hat.
Yep.
And then if I have any questions about what it is that my movements are doing, negative positives will make a little square beer mat, and then all my troubles will be behind me.
They will.
Right. Okay. I think we'll start to wind things up. I've got to say, everybody here that's been on, thank you for taking part. It's been illuminating. And Andre, thank you for staying awake. And then again, it's relatively early over there where you are, anyway, isn't it? So there'll be no excuse anyway. But no.
Yeah, no, my girlfriend's in the kitchen here, starting to make us some lunch or breakfast, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it. But I do want to thank you guys all for staying on for so long, answering some of my questions. Thank you for Andrew and Simon for bearing with me as I had to reschedule from last time for putting this together. I think it's a great idea, and I encourage you to do more of these kinds of things in the future. And I look forward to the rest of my large format journey. Start posting my first photos in the Facebook group, and being a more active part of the community.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, and I think your questions have been excellent. And I think it's also shown that there's certainly mileage in this kind of format as well, because I think you've only really touched the surface of the many questions that are out there. So perhaps at some point in the future we may do a similar kind of event. So if there's anybody that's listening that might want to do something like this, then you can always drop us a line. And Andrew, how do people get in touch with us on the Large Format Photography Podcast?
There's an email address.
There is, yeah. Can you remember it?
The Large Format Photography Podcast at Gmail.
No, Andrew, there's no the.
No, isn't there?
No.
Okay. Large format photography.
Be the one telling you this.
large format photography podcast at gmail.com. Large format photography podcast at gmail.com. There should be a the. Why isn't there a the at the beginning?
Because it was long enough as it was.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. I just want to say thank you to those people that have donated to us since the last time we said thank you, and I'm just trying to work out when that might have even been. So that would have been like potentially from the 1st of August. Let's just see who we've got on here since the 1st of August. I'm just going to go through them. Oh my word! How do I say that one? That's okay. That was back in July, so I haven't got to say that one again.
Go on, say it again. I'm sure they deserve thanking twice.
Yeah, Aram Havar
Nagala.
I don't know. It's got strange things and it's got strange things above letters as well. I think that might be Finnish or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so let's. Did we have every editing this month? Oh yeah, here we go. Robin, 1st of August. Really enjoyed the Jack Lowe episode. So thought it was an opportune moment to do this. Well, thank you very much, Robin. And we've also had a donation from Shugpug. So thank you very much, Shugpug. Okay, so we've got a lot of people on the show. Nicolas had to sadly leave us. So thank you, Nick, for being with us. I think we can do a quick run through of the people that are here, and if you want to say how people can look at the work that you do, that kind of stuff, and if you got a very, very quick shout out as well, please do so as well. So top of my list on my alphabetical list is AJ. So AJ White, how can people look at the kind of things that you do? You're muted as well, AJ.
All right, yeah. If y'all want to look me up, it's bearded _ photog with an F on it. Place to find me.
Like you were breaking up there, so give that another go.
Bearded photog on Instagram. It's just underscore between bearded and photog, and that's with an F.
That's it. That's great. We'll come back to Andre and Andrew, who were next on this list alphabetically. Then we've got Cameradactyl with Ethan. How can people keep an eye on what the kind of things that you do, Ethan?
You can find me at Cameradactyl on Instagram or cameradactyl.com. Thanks, guys.
Excellent. Great having you with us. Chroma Camera, that would be Steve Lloyd. How can people keep up with the amazing things that you're up to at the moment?
I'm on Instagram as Chroma Camera, or my website is chroma.camera.
Excellent. That's a cool website as well. Chroma.camera. Not a .com, anything like that, just Chroma Camera.
Nope.
So you're not typing it in wrong. Yeah, that is how it works.
Not the Chroma Camera?
Nope, there's no there.
Sure.
Ultra modern. It's okay.
And then we've got Dave Shrimpton. Dave, how can people keep up with the kind of things that you do?
I wouldn't bother if I were you. I mean, yeah, you'll find me around. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I'll be on the group sometimes. So, yeah, but thanks, guys. And, inspirational. Thanks.
What's your Instagram handle?
It's Dave_Shrimpton.
Excellent. Well worth taking a look as well. Then we've got Greg Obst. Greg, how can people keep up with the kind of stuff that you do?
You can go to Instagram. It's Greg, G-R-E-G-G, Obst, O-B-S-T, all one word. These days, it's mostly behind-the-scenes stuff and shooting and that kind of thing. I've got a huge developing backlog, but the more curated stuff is on gregobst.com.
Excellent. Thank you. Jason Lane, you're behind quite a few things. So the things that you're doing, how can people keep up with those?
So first of all, my website where you can go for dry plates and dry plate info is www.pictoriographica.com, and I hope you add the link to it because spelling that is fun. I'm on Instagram at Pictoriographica, and if you want to see the work of folks who are shooting dry plates, check out the Dry Plate Photographers group on Facebook.
Excellent. And Jimmy Hickford, thank you. Hopefully you're still recording, Jimmy.
Yes, it is still recording. I might have missed little bits. There was a second while you were shutting you were tying the ribbons on the show that my computer decided to stall, but most of it is there. It's been, as you say, it's been very illuminating. I'm pretty much on the same part of the journey as Andre. I haven't done that much 4x5. I've done medium format and 35mm, getting better with those. 4x5 is still a totally new beast to me with the speed graphic that I got from Dave. So yeah, still learning myself.
Well,
I look forward to learning together, Jimmy.
Yeah, we might have to put heads together at some point, Andre.
Will do.
And thank you again, Jimmy.
Not a problem.
Yeah, and John Money, thank you for being with us today. I hope you've enjoyed this.
Oh, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me. I didn't say much, but I was more in receive mode from all the wisdom that is in this group.
Yeah, well, if you listen to many podcasts that we've done, I go into receive mode on this show quite often, and just quite happy listening to Andrew talking to whoever our guest is. So I know that feeling well. But thank you very much for being with us, John. Appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
How do we find you, John?
Oh yeah, Instagram, John T Money.
Gotcha. There we go.
And that's it.
I've requested a follow, so I hope you let me in.
And Ethan, I'm just wondering if you can do I can't think of the word now. But Nick's not here. You know where Nick is, don't you?
Nick is all over the place. You can find him on Whidbey Island in Seattle, chasing pigeons and screaming at eagles. No, he's AV Nick on Instagram. You can find him at the Homemade Camera podcast Facebook group and homemadecamera.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. And Joseph, finally on our list here, Joseph Brunges, thank you very much for being with us again. And I've got to say thank you very much for your contributions as well today as well.
Oh yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure. You can find me on my website, which is josephbrunges.com. I'm on Instagram at Joseph Brunges Photography, and on Flickr it's Joseph Brunges. Those are probably the three easiest places to find me.
Excellent. Thank you again very much, sir. And
Did you play a tune with that, Dave Shrimpton? Sorry, Simon. He looks like he's playing an accordion.
Yeah, I can.
Sorry. And Andre, again, thank you for making this. The show wouldn't have happened. So if people like it, that's great. You can take the credit. If people thinking, why, please do not do that ever again, it's Andre's fault.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being with us. And this is a good opportunity for you to say all the many things that you get involved in. So tell the world.
Well, yeah. First of all, once again, thank you so much, guys, for having me. If you would like to reach out to me, there's a few different ways. I'm Andre on Film on Instagram. Please do check out the Negative Positives podcast, co-hosted by myself, Mr. Mike Gutterman, and the lovely Miss Roxana Angles. You can also reach out to me via CineStill directly if you have any CineStill specific questions. All of you large format shooters that are chomping at the bit for some 800T, 50D, and hell, potentially even some XX, keep an eye out for the next few months.
That's going to be really, yeah. That's going to be really exciting. Yes.
So XX in 5x7?
Who knows? DVD. XX will probably come out in 120 first, and then maybe like a custom limited order in the future.
Yeah, and I'm going to apologise to those people who are on there. Actually, there's no point on YouTube because it looks like Jimmy's computer's crashed, so this bit isn't actually being recorded. So I can't really apologise to the YouTube people because they can't hear what I'm saying. But I'm sorry anyway. And Andrew, how can people keep up with the kind of things that you do?
On Twitter and Instagram, I'm Warboys Snapper. And then you can find me hanging out on the Large Format Photography podcast Facebook group most days, several times a day. Andre, your Instagram feed has got more than 6 pictures on it now, but not many more.
It's got more than 6 pictures, but it's been over a year since I've posted.
And it's all watches.
It's about 1/3 watches.
You're not following me. That's the other point I'll make. But anyway.
Well, I'll make sure to correct that.
Okay, and so finally, I'm on Twitter as Simon For. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic, which is also the name of my website as well, but you stick a co.uk on the back of there. What else? I do a weekly podcast called the Classic Lenses podcast with Johnny Sisson and Perry G. And that's probably about it. I'm sure I've forgotten some other things, but there you go. Our music is called Two Finger Johnny by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's show, and it'd be great if you can come back again next time. So goodbye.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Andre. Are you still there?
He could not wait to get away.
He ditched you.
He's the only one who has to
Fast as he
say.
could.
Come on, show me.
Send it to me and Simon instead.